I can't tell if you're frozen or if you're just fucking with me. All right. Got that. All right. Hopefully that's fine. I did have to restart my call. Seems to be good though. All right. So as I was saying, guys, I honestly don't know how far into my discussion on Fran I was. But bringing it all back to the point that I was making, Fran is one of those personalities that is going to need to basically have someone on the Atlanta Reign team basically just sit him down and just lay out the ground rules for him. He's going to be someone that you're going to have to just keep an eye on because he is kind of like that loose cannon type of player where he's going to have those moments where he has bursts of anger or lashes out on Twitter or can be overly negative, and you need to have a player on that team, maybe like, I don't know, necessarily a role model, but someone to just be the chill factor, right? You need someone to keep him level-headed, and it is a very big risk having him on that roster. So if you're an Atlanta fan, like, it's very hard to say and have like this full confidence that DeFran is going to make it as a professional player, just because we've already seen this play out through a player like XQC, and knowing that they're both one in the same mind in a lot of aspects, there's a very strong possibility that DeFran won't make it through even a full season or even half of a season. Like, it could be like one stage and that's it. So I hope he makes it, like, because I want to see that redemption story of him as, at one point maybe a disgraced player, at least in the mind of the community, but, like, it would be one of the bigger redemption stories that Overwatch Esports has seen, and I hope we get to see it played out to its fullest potential rather than just being cut short because of someone's attitude or something similar like that.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to take in is based around the fact that and it kind of ties into the videos today that we'll talk about next week, is just the way the matchmaking, way the game plays out in the ladder ranks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take that out, because I'm not going to say he's done doing that, but now he's going to be spending his time playing with professional players, going up against professional teams. So it's not like you're playing with trash teammates or anything like that. You're playing with the best of the best. So he's got like a better excuse not to turn into his normal self and get frustrated and throw games, because, well, the thing is you're not throwing games in the Overwatch League. So hopefully it's a little better for him. Hopefully, because DeFran is probably, I'll just skill wise, he probably top 10 DPS in Overwatch League. In my mind, like, his tracking is insane. Like, he probably would have been top 2-3 tracers in the league last year when Tracer was so prominent. Now with Big Ed, Tracer's never around anymore, but it's one of those things where he is so good, just so good, that if they can just control his craziness, like his I'm gonna go full on pun here, and hopefully you get it. His effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Eh?
Yeah.
Then he's gonna be doing wonders for the team. He's gonna be that, the face of the franchise, the guy who carries the team, the motivator. But like you said, they probably need somebody on the team to look at him and be like, slow your roll. Don't be an ash hat. Like, I will not say it. That's Ash. Ash, and then whatever. But like, even in that case, you see it like when you compare it to XQC, I mean, XQC had probably like two of the most chill teammates ever in Siegel and Mickey, and that didn't help XQC.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that is something that is going to be effective with him, but it's worth the shot. So, but yeah, if they don't have DeFran, I don't know if they have it. If they could beat the Shanghai Dragons from last year, they don't have the greatest of teams in Atlanta, mainly because I'm bitter and I hate everything about Atlanta.
Except their academy team that is still yet to be announced,
Yes.
but will eventually be L&O.
Yes.
That's the only redemption factor.
Yeah, the only redeeming factor of Atlanta is supposedly sugar-free.
All right. Well, we have quite a few brand reveals for the Overwatch League. So let's go inside the league. I know we're already running. I don't even know what time it is at this point. But we're probably nearing like an hour and a half, almost, and we're not even at the main discussion yet. So we had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 franchise reveals in the past week for these expansion teams. So first up, let's talk about Paris. You know, the berets, as you know, you probably saw on OWLN this week. I do not, in fact, have those images ready to display again on stream. So if you want to see my iteration of their brand, I will post it on Twitter, I'm sure, or on our Discord, or you can go back and watch Overwatch League Network from Monday. But we have Paris, the Paris Eternal. So their color scheme consists of gold, blue, burgundy, and white, and their logo is a burgundy-colored rooster, which is France's national symbol. As a non-Frenchman, I did not know that. I just automatically assumed it was a baguette or a French beret.
Or white flag.
or yeah, that works too. So I learned something new. I'll openly admit. So incorporated in the shape of the rooster, they also have the infinity symbol. And you know they had a live reveal event for this. That was open to the public. The Overwatch League Commissioner, Nate Nanzer, was there. The internal roster that was announced last month was also on hand. And it's important to note that Nanzer did in fact confirm that in the next season of Overwatch League, they are extending the schedule to Sunday. So it will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as opposed to Wednesday through Saturday. And, you know, if you were lucky enough to be there, I don't know how many of our listeners are in France, but... you know, they did put on lecture matches with the Eternal team. And, you know, I have to say, like, I really don't like the brand. I really don't. Maybe it's just because of the rooster, or the lack of baguettes or berets, but, like, I don't mind the color. But all in all, like, the name is fine. With the rooster, I can't get on board with. I do like the color scheme. I think the skins with that the burgundy and that like that off blue color that they have, or I don't know if that's supposed to be off white or off blue, whatever. Like those two pair well together, but all in all, like I feel like it doesn't all fit together. So I like 2 out of the 3 aspects, but just I can't get on board with the rooster. I mean, there's just way too many memes you can make out of roosters. Maybe not as many as one of the other franchise teams that we'll talk about, which might be even more not safe for work. But all in all, like, I'm enjoying the name. I like the colors, but the rooster, I mean, without the beret and baguette, just, it doesn't feel French enough for me.
Yeah, like, all right, so I don't mind the name, the Paris Eternal, but the thing is like, the rooster is, no, just no. Like, you know, it's doesn't tie into the name of the team. And like, I know they had the sign for there. Mm-hmm. Nobody really truly knows what the sign for Eternal is. Like, before you said it, I had no idea what it looked like. Like, it's a rooster. Your logo is a rooster. So yeah, you get a solid B plus on the name. The color scheme I really like. It's very Spider-Man esque. Um, but you fail on the logo, 100%. Like no, the Paris. I don't even know if I can say it on here.
I'm going to say it later.
Okay, so it's the Paris cock. Like that's what it is. It's the Paris cocks.
Mhm.
That's my name for that.
So
like, yeah,
I just have to ask now, if it had a beret and a baguette, would that have been better for you?
it would have had been smoking a cigarette too. So the rooster's smoking a cigarette with a baguette and a beret.
Mhm.
But I feel that's a little stereotypical, and there would have been some complaints.
Are you saying that I have become the Simpsons of Overwatch podcasters?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just making sure we're on the same track here.
Yeah. These, and we'll get to these team names are just, there's so many pun and joke things included with all of this. It's just, do you have a PR team at all? Like, do they do anything? Like, because fans aren't going to call them the Paris Eternals or the Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
It's, hey, who's your team playing this week? The Cocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just the way things go. So, yeah.
All right, well, next up, we had one of 3 China expansion team reveals, so let's start with Guangzhou. This is the team that had that very ominous tweet about the Abyss, and, they unveiled their branding, so this team will be known as the Guangzhou Charge. Now, as of right now, we only know one player on this roster, as we've mentioned in the past, that being Hotba, who was traded from the Philadelphia Fusion last month. And Guangzhou basically took inspiration from Iconic Sports logos, where letters have grown to represent an entire city. So, they got G, they got Z. But I have to say, out of everything that we have seen so far, the color scheme on this one is, without question, my favorite out of the lot. They went with that, blue on blue, kind of like Clash. You got the dark, the light, a little bit of teal. It works so good. And this is definitely going to be a team that I might not support fully, but, if I'm looking for cool skins, I'm going to be buying some of theirs just based on the color scheme alone. And my only gripe with the name is the fact that it wasn't something straight out of the Abyss. It wasn't anything Cthulhu-based. It wasn't any sea creature. But, I'm okay with, a play on, lightning and, storms of that nature. So it did kind of tie in with their initial tweet. But all in all, the basic, lettering for the logo, right? It seems kind of half-assed. To me, anyway. I get that it's traditional, but there's a lot more that you could have done outside of just having, a lightning bolt as part of the text, basically.
Okay. So the logo looks like it's from Gatorade. It looks like something that would be on the side of a Gatorade. So not good there. I don't mind the name, but it's just whatever. Charge. Everyone's going to butcher the name of the actual, the location, so they're just going to call them the Charge.
That's going to be the case for all the Chinese teams, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, this is the only one that's going to go by its actual name. And the color scheme, it's okay. I mean, I know you like it. I'm just kind of meh on the blue on blue. I don't know, throw something else in there, but they're the only team that went the safe route. They went the plain route with all of everything that they did. They went plain with the name. They went plain with the logo. They went kind of plain with the colors and stuff like that. It's just, they played it safe, which honestly, compared to some of the other teams, good call.
Yeah.
I'm terrified to see what the rest of these teams do. So, but whatever. They're not going to be my team, so
Nope.
I'm good with it.
Alright, well, we also had Chengdu reveal their brand in, and they even came out with a hashtag, which Slambo completely ruined for me on Overwatch League Network on Monday, and if you saw the title of the episode, you probably know why at this point. But Chengdu are going to be known as the Chengdu Hunters. And what I loved about this, about the reveal, had nothing to do with the actual name or their logo. It was the fact that there was this game of chicken, basically, between Chengdu's Twitter account and then the Overwatch League Twitter account, where they basically revealed, deleted, revealed, deleted, revealed, deleted, and then finally revealed again, officially. And it kept going back and forth. So the Hunters have a color scheme that consists of gold, orange, black, and white. And their logo is a panda. Now, here's the thing, at least a lot of people, like when you think of China, like, they might not know it's a national symbol, but they will associate, the panda with China. Not so much of the rooster and France, right? But, the panda is also seen as a symbol of peace, and, for that to kind of be tied into hunters, that math just doesn't add up, I'm not good at math, but that seems kind of odd to me. This is a team that we have no official roster sign-ins as of yet, but we do know that they have a consultant that will be helping with the operations of the team, that being RNG, who are Royal Never Give Up. And this is one of the more renowned Chinese esports clubs. So, all in all, like, I'm a fan of the name, even if it doesn't really fit, the hunter of the panda, right? Like, I don't know, like, what exactly it's going after when it's on the hunt outside of bamboo, but, like, you don't really hunt bamboo. I don't know, it feels kind of misplaced, but I'm okay with the panda logo. And I do like the fact that at least they made its eyes kind of like more angry, so you can actually see some emotion in the logo in itself. And, I'm a fan of just general animal mascots, so all in all, like, I'm 100% okay with this reveal, as opposed to some of the other ones that we did get.
Yeah, so I like the panda logo. First off, panda logo, name the hunters. It is illegal to hunt pandas. Just gonna point that out there right now. It's illegal. So you're calling yourself the hunters, and your logo is an animal you can't hunt, and who doesn't hunt themselves. So does not match. The color scheme is a little too bumblebee for me. I don't dislike it, but it's a little too yellow for my liking. But I'm not against it. I don't dislike the color scheme. And they lead themselves to be called, and we talked about this pre-show, is if they suck, they're the trash pandas.
Yes.
Like, they're the trash pandas. Like, that, if they're bad at all, dumpster fire. So right. The trash pandas and the dumpster fire are facing off against each other this week. Let the Twitter headlines roll in on that. So yeah, it's okay. It just doesn't, like you said, like the name and the logo just don't mesh together at all. I don't know, are people going to call them hunters, or are they call them pandas? Like, yeah, there's too much branding confusion there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in regards to the skins, like, when I first saw it, I was like, man, that's a lot of yellow. Like, I wasn't really a huge fan of the, banana Reinhardt with the Mayhem. And then when I saw this, I'm like, oh, here we go again. I mean, it's okay. Like, I do like that there was, some more colors kind of, like, mixed into that as opposed to just red. But... this is probably one that I'm gonna kind of, like, shy away from in regards to actually buying skins. But moving on, we also had The most recent brand reveal, also out of the Chinese expansion teams, that one being Hangzhou, and they will be known as the Hangzhou Spark. Now, that's not what the community is going to be calling them, because this is definitely going to be probably the more not safe for work iteration of them. But the logo. Okay, first off, like, this is a total weeb team because it is operated by Billy, which I'm going to note with some of the stuff that I will talk about here. But the logo in itself is a finger gun surrounded by pink electricity. Now, the name and the logo for this team is a reference to a character from an anime, a certain scientific railgun. Now, railgun was the franchise name that this team wanted to get. This is a team that had basically sent out a Twitter poll. Railgun was the top option, which also would have been a nod to the anime that they were heavily referencing in the branding, but Blizzard did not approve of the name, so they went with Spark. You got the pink, you got the blue, which goes back to their parent company, Billy, who uses the colors on their website. I think they even, owned Crunchyroll, which is also an anime streaming service. But here's the thing, right? So, yes, my sleep got completely effed up, and this was the first thing I saw in the morning, and I saw this, and I immediately went to Photoshop. Immediately. No, they didn't. So, yeah, I'm gonna push this up on screen. So, we've talked about teams basically stealing color schemes. It went with Atlanta and Toronto, and now you have this Hangzhou team basically come in and just take Runaways' colors, basically, from out from underneath them. I'm not saying that Vancouver was going to give Runaways their pink and blue, but a majority of people that follow the Korean scene will look at this and automatically assume that this team is going to be the Runaway team, which it is in fact not.
No. It's, yeah. You're 100% right. When I first saw this, I'm like, did they sign Runaways and out of left field? Because that would be if they did, this would be a phenomenal way to tease it to the fan base.
And
yeah, I mean, I like the color, an interesting base. I like it. I think the skins look pretty cool. I'll just say it. Their name is the Finger Bangs, like the Hangzhou Finger Bangs. That's gonna be their name. I think even Monte Cristo mentioned that on Twitter. I'm just if the announcers are even calling it, maybe again, we need to have a class about PR. PR means a lot. So, yeah, you messed up with the logo. I don't see that sticking around much longer because honestly, this is another one to anime, but Spark and that logo, nothing to do with each other. For the majority of the fan base, they have no idea that it's a nod to the anime. The majority, and these logos make no sense to each other. So I don't know. I mean, I like the name Spark. I like the color scheme. God awful logo.
Yeah, I will note that on the Competitive Overwatch Reddit, they did have some of the other concept art for the logo designs that had a little bit more to them, but they were still, they still had the Fingerbane logo incorporated in them. And I know Hippo says in chat, no one owns colors. That is true, but it's just everyone will associate them with Runaway, or some other things. But it's just as someone that has followed Runaway for quite some time, it basically guarantees that they're not gonna get their color scheme essentially for Vancouver, which I honestly wasn't expecting either. But it's just more of a theme that I feel like is gonna get them cheap heat in the long run because they're basically just taken a similar color scheme to another pre-existing team. But all in all, like, this is a total weeb name. You know, it's a nod to anime, which isn't really out of the blue considering their parent company. But between the Spark and, you know, the Eternal, there's gonna be a lot of spicy memes and a lot of maybe some not safe for work crossovers, like in the past, like when we had teams like My Dawn, you know, things like that. It's gonna be an interesting season, to say the least. And it's not just because of these new logos, as meme as they can be, but, you know, we also have, you know, some pretty big additions to some rosters. So let's look at the Dallas Fuel real quick, and they have picked up RCK, who formerly played on Team Gigante as their flex tank. So he signed a 2-year contract with the Fuel. And this is a player who began his career back in 2017 when he started as a DPS player for ENC Esports. And then he joined Gigante after basically, like, the whole Gigante roster outside of Davin got poached for the Overwatch League. And he would move to that flex tank role upon joining Gigante. So with RCK in the lineup, Gigante, you know, they finished top 4 in Contenders EU twice. And he's been known for his Tifa play, primarily, but he did play a lot of Genji in the past. Now, the signing does bring the Fuel roster up to 9 players in total. It's the second signing for the Fuel during the offseason, the other being former London Spitfire player Closer. And we do know that Hastro mentioned that they are going to sign 1 additional player before the start of the second season, so they will have 10 players on their roster for the start of Season 2. But the biggest question is he going to be the starting off-tank on this lineup over Mickey? Like, if you are the Dallas Fuel right now, Ed, like, do you see RCK being on that starting lineup with OGE, or are you going to prefer playing Mickey, despite, you know, a fair amount of inconsistencies in his play throughout of Season 1?
I totally see him replacing. This is a Mickey replacement. As much as everyone loves Mickey, Mickey as much of a fan favorite, and I know Slambo got a little teary-eyed, a little misty talking about, you know, Mickey being on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
He probably shouldn't be the starting off thing. Now the thing is I don't think he's just the abyss and not play. I think everyone can kind of agree that his baguette play last year was probably some of the best in the league. So he definitely will have a place on certain maps when they want to run. Maybe they do want to run goats. Yeah, you know, they bring him in so he can play baguettes, stuff like that. Or if, you know, certain niche spots. But I think you're looking at OGE and RCK as your, you know, as your tank duo. It's just, you know, I mean, yeah, them with Closure, Effect, Unco, and probably Taimu. Like, you're looking at the starting lineup, unless they do some crazy sign, like sign Zachary or something like that. I don't know. Who still hasn't been signed for some stupid reason. But, like, I think Mickey's a bench player at the point.
Yeah, and, you know, Mickey's definitely a player that in the future I can see transition into a staff role, just because of that, the light that he brings to, you know, that team in particular. But, you know, if I'm Mickey right now, I would definitely be focusing on, you know, maybe some of the more off-meta heroes. Not to say, like, Zarya would be one, but, like, his Zarya does need to see some improvement. And, you know, we've had quite a few Roadhog changes, so, you know, that could be another opportunity for Mickey to get, you know, more of a nod if Roadhog does become more prevalent in the meta. But I do feel like, just based on the fact that Mickey's kind of fallen off a bit in regards to his diva play, at least compared to the overall league, that's enough of a reason to give RCK the nod over him. But that was not the only addition to one of the teams that we did see here in the past week, because the Dragons also added the former Element Mystic head coach. So, we've talked about the Dragons and their, we talked about their season enough. We don't want to keep beating a dead horse. But they're in a restructure phase. Obviously, they had a lot of drastic changes, both with their players and their coaches. And they've turned to Element Mystic head coach Levi to add to their coaching staff. So Levi will be serving as an assistant coach for the team. So he'll be joining Blue Has, who was the Kontu Panthera coach last season. He'll be with Creed. And Element Mystic is one of these teams out of Korea that, before the Path to Pro was really put into place, this was one of the youngest, up-and-coming teams that were beating a lot of the heavyweights at the time. They basically ran shot through Apex Challengers Season 5. They won the title then, which would now be the equivalent of Open Division. But Element Mystic has been a team kind of that's always been in the discussion as, one of the more individually skilled teams out there that were always given, teams like Kontu Panthera or Lunatic High, the Meta Gaming, teams as well, a run for their money. And that's one of the reasons why you have seen a lot of pieces of that team getting picked up. So all in all, looking at this coaching lineup, compared to last season, they're in a much better position this season. So, having, Blue Has and then having Levi, I'm expecting some pretty good looks from this Shanghai Dragons lineup going into Season 2. Because, pulling from two of the more respected teams out of that region, and then factoring in all the other changes that we have seen, no, I really don't want to put, a number on the map differential difference, that we'll see between Season 1 and Season 2, but it's easy to say that Shanghai has most to gain. But I feel like overall improvement when it comes to win difference, they'll have the biggest uptick compared to Season 1, compared to other teams that also have been restructured, like Florida Mayhem.
Yeah, no, this is a great coach signing for them. It just further advances all right, they tried the all-China, they have to go to the all-Korea route. And that's kind of what they did. Give or take a few players. But, they're basically a Korean, top-notch Korean coaches and contenders to come in there and kind of change they thought they could in Season 1. They thought they could kind of, I think they took it for granted on how hard it would be and how good they would be and stuff like that. They thought they'd be a lot better than they were, and they quickly realized they were horrible. So the owners knew they had to do something drastic, and they did do something. They completely gutted and changed the team aspect, everything about it. And this is just another signing. I mean, I think they still have room to sign more people. I think they may even need to. I think they only have 8. But I mean, I may be wrong. But besides that, they've already done plenty to make themselves poise themselves to have the biggest leap from Season 1 to Season 2 out of anyone. The only one who could compete with them would be the Florida Mayhem.
Absolutely. And moving on, we do have some new additions. Where one of these is a potential call-up down the line. One of them is a call-up. So let's start with Fusions, who has signed a 2-way contract with Boston Uprising. So this kind of happened during the World Cup stint that he had. Obviously, Fusions had a pretty good performance this year in the World Cup on the United Kingdom team. And he is a 2-way player, which makes him eligible for, the Boston Uprising, as well as their affiliate team in Contenders, formerly known as Toronto Esports, now known as who no one knows right now. They haven't revealed the new brand. We'll just say, Uprising Academy or Boston Academy. So this news comes after, this Academy team picked up the former XL2 Academy coach, Ayo Stux, which was a huge sign-in. Probably one of the bigger sign-ins for Tier 2 anyway, from a staff perspective. as well as Axel to their coaching staff. And Huck basically came out and he said that in regards to Fusions, as a potential call-up, he's going to wait to see how he does in Contenders. So Fusions will start on the Boston Academy team, and he'll be moved up dependent on his development. Now, it's important to note that as of right now, Uprising have 9 players on their roster. A two-way player does count towards the Overwatch League roster as well as the Contenders roster, and when you look at the Uprising, they already have 2 main tanks on their roster. So you got Gamzu, who was a main tank throughout Season 1, and then Boston Uprising also called up Axiom, who, at the time was a main tank for their Academy team. So, it really doesn't leave room for Fusions on the main roster right now. So when you kind of look at the grander scheme of things, I feel like a lot of this is just going to boil down to, one, if there's any more sort of like inner turmoil on the Uprising roster, like we've heard about in the past, or 2, whether or not the backup off-tank is able to perform. So a lot of this is going to be put on Axiom. If Axiom doesn't live up to the expectations of the team, then it does open up more of a door for Fusions to come in. But at the end of the day, like, when you kind of, like, compare the 3, like, if you're looking for Reinhardt play, I do feel like Fusions would be the best bet out of those 3 on that roster, but for now, like, it's very hard to just be like, you know what, you did great in this one thing, let's automatically push you to the forefront. That's not something that we really see when it comes to the World Cup. And then, get in, like, the leap automatically to the Overwatch League. That's just kind of unheard of. Like, even with Flower, now granted he was underage, but, Flower was someone that last year had a breakout performance in the World Cup, and then, he signed with XL2 Academy, and then he kind of got shit on, for lack of a better term. Like, Flower didn't look that great last season in Contenders North America, but, he is of age now. He did get called up, which, we'll talk about in regards to another call-up, but all in all, like, Fusions, as of right now, he'll be with the Academy team, and dependent on how the backup does, then maybe, mid-season we might see a call-up, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that Fusions will likely stay on the Academy team throughout this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, like you said, you can't run essentially two game sets that he played, or 3. He played 3. Like, you saw him play in 3 matches. Don't anoint him the king of the tanks. Mm-hmm. So it's smart for them to do a 2-way contract with him where they can let him learn in Contenders. I mean, he did play, I think, British Hurricane, which is not saying much, but he did play for them. So, like, let's see how he actually is in Contenders before calling him up, because it's not like you have bad tanks on the Boston Uprising right now. Gamsu's not a bad tank. He's actually quite good, especially at his Winston play. So you said, I mean, maybe Reinhardt, he can come in and play that, but we'll wait and see how he does. So it'll be interesting. He's good. I enjoyed watching him, but let's see how he does against the actual competition, not show matches, essentially.
Absolutely. And he was not the only player to get the call-up, because we also had to look at XL2 and the New York Excelsior. So the NYXL have called up Nene. Now, okay, so going back, as I mentioned, Flower didn't do so hot last season at Contenders. Nene, on the other hand, was 100% the hard carry on that team. Because, like, every time you would turn around, like, Flower, or Nanohana at the time, because he wasn't going by Flower for, like, the second time, Flower was pretty quiet, and anytime you look at the kill feed, Nene was the one finalizing all the kills. So, this is something that we've talked about in the past. So, with Nene getting called up, this is assuming that there aren't any, role changes or any trades happening. This would leave the New York Excelsior with 5 players on their DPS lineup. You would have Flower, you would have Nene, you would have SBB, you would have Pine, you would have Libero, the Flex God. You would have all of these pieces, right? And because of the amount of flexibility you have, a lot of those hero pools between those 5 players do overlap. In some cases, even between 3 or 4 of your players. So with Nene, this is someone that started his career back in 2017 with Luxury Watch Red. And this was before he joined Lunatic High later in the year after, that core roster was picked up for the Soul Dynasty. And he was with the XL2 Academy, and, they made a playoff run in both seasons of Contenders this year. Last season they made it to the grand finals before they got absolutely stomped by Fusion University in what was arguably the most one-sided LAN finals in the history of Overwatch. Maybe even more so than the World Cup finals this year between South Korea and China. But the move brings the New York Excelsior up to 10 players. But it definitely puts New York Excelsior in this really awkward position that not a lot of teams are currently finding themselves in, or have found themselves in the fact that, you have, like, your main tank and your off tank pretty much set. You have Mono, you have Meko, and Nene has served as an off tank in the past, but they have all of these pieces on the DPS lineup, so what do you do with these players? Do you trade someone away? Do you have Nene move back to off-tank? Do you move certain players to individual heroes as map specialists, kind of like what they did with Pine, with McCree on Ilios? What do you do to fit all of these pieces of this puzzle? Because right now, it's just kind of like this jumbled mess, and it's really hard to kind of see what exactly New York is going to envision, because when you look at their players individually, any one of those players on that DPS line could be really good trade bait to maybe bolster your bench. To pick up a good main tank, a good off tank, whatever it is. But, as a whole, like, Mono and Meko really didn't not play in that many maps. So, it's really hard to give up a vital piece of this puzzle for someone that might only play, maybe 1/5, 1/6 of the maps that are going to be played in the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem that they're going to run into. They have 5 legit star DPS players, who would probably be a starter on any other team except maybe the Gladiators. They seem to be doing pretty well for themselves on DPS. I think Nene is going to be switching to off tank, to more an off tank role, because they have no backup tanks on that team. I think he's going to be more of a brought in on certain map specializations. I think Sebeobi is riding the pine, especially with Tracer not being anywhere near the meta right now. I think they're looking probably at Flower being your 2 main DPS, with bringing in Pine next for specialized, and then Sebeobi and Nene rounding out like even more specialization. But they should, in theory, trade one of them away, just for the sake of the players. Like, you can't just stockpile the best players and just not let them play. You're just going to create unhappy play points. They didn't even win the championship, the grand final last year, so it's not even they're not. It's not like one of those situations to all kind of be backups on the best teams to win the championship. Like, they didn't win the championship last year. They're probably favored this year, but the thing is they may not win it this year either. So, yeah, I think they're probably trying to work on a trade somewhere. At least I would hope, because if they went in and go with this roster, I'd be shocked.
Okay, so kind of like looking at the rosters right now. We know Dallas is needing a projectile player. If I'm Dallas, you're trying to trade with New York because a lot of them could move to that role, or maybe they try to get Libero, because Flower and Libero basically have an identical hero pool when it comes to everything that they play. So either one of those is a good option in regards to a potential pickup for a team like Dallas, but across the board, like any team would be fortunate to have one of these DPS players on their lineup, and you don't want to be in a position where you're creating what I'm going to dub the numlocked effect, right? You don't want to have someone getting disgruntled because they're not seeing that much play time, or maybe they miss Korea, anything like that. But you don't want someone like ranting on Twitter about how you're just not seeing any form of play. So I'm hoping for the players' sake, if they know they're going to be in a position where maybe their playtime might see some hindrance, that they'd be open to getting traded, so, they could have more of a mainstay role on another team, because at the end of the day, it's all about making the players happy, and, even traded, like, one piece away isn't necessarily going to be the biggest blow to a team like New York. And if anything, like, it's gonna just increase the overall level of competition. And then you factor in all the other changes for Season 2, and, it's a recipe for success all across the board, rather than just trying to hoard all of one specific category. So, New York, I don't know how they're going to do it. I hope to see at least one DPS player get traded, but I think we'll see Nene on that off-tank role, maybe going back to the Zarya specialist, as he was on Luxury Watch, but for now, we'll have to wait and see. But this will lead into our main discussion, which we probably won't spend a ton of time on, just given the current time it is right now. But we did have a new patch drop on live, which is patch 1.30.0.1. And, if you listen to our past episodes, we have touched upon some of this stuff already. So they did make the jump height consistent across the roster. Ashe is on live servers, and that was a quick turnaround. Like, honestly, I was not expecting Ashe to get piled into this patch at all. But, it's not just Ashe. We got Bob, who's the more important piece between the two. Too many people. I don't know if I'd be one of them, just because, everyone is just falling in love with Ashe. But
yeah,
general overview of the new hero, Ashe. She has 200 HP. She has a Viper, which, I'm not gonna lie, is probably my favorite gun in the game, concept-wise. So, Viper is this semi-automatic hit-scan weapon that can also scope. It has 12 rounds per clip. It has like a 4-second full reload, but you do have the option to quick reload, which is pretty cool. So your left shift is the coach gun, which knocks enemies away and propels herself backward for added mobility. If you're aimed at the ground, it can also like launch you up too. So this does 6 damage per pellet, with 15 pellets per shot. You can do a max of 90 damage per shot, and this is on a 10-second cooldown. And, this can inflict, self-knockback. So, it not only knocks enemies away, but you could also use it to, propel yourself back for added mobility. So consider it like, what is the... It's kind of like that.
That's what I kind of compare it to the most.
There's a hunter ability in World of Warcraft that's just like this too. Disengage. Yeah, that's probably like the closest thing that you can compare it to, as well. And this is just great for creating separation, which I'm happy to see. She has her E ability, which is Dynamite, which does detonate after a short delay, or it detonates immediately when it's shot. Now, this explosion lights enemies on fire, which does deal damage over time. And, there's a little bit more math involved in this one. So the burn damage is 20 damage per second. I can do a max of 175 damage per use, or 120, depending on if you exploded immediately. It does do explosion splash damage from 30 to 75, but this can also self-damage Ashe. So the explosion has a 5-meter radius. The burn lasts for 5 seconds. And the dynamite lasts for 2 seconds or until it's shot. And it's on a 10-second cooldown. Now, this is definitely something that you can, like, pre-throw, like, at, the enemy spawn at the start of the game if you're on defense to get some really quick charge, which I'm sure they'll probably nerf the amount of charge that you get from it, because you can get, like, 25%, like, with one dynamite throw, basically, if you hit, a team. I know I've seen some clips of that over on the Reddits, but we gotta talk about her ultimate, which is B.O.B. It's Bob. Which is definitely going to get a lot more use compared to, some of our other friends. So, Bob charges forward and knocks enemies in the air, and then lays down some suppressant fire with his arm cannons. So, Bob has 8 bullets per second. It does 120 damage, or, 14 damage per bullet. So, it comes out to like 112 DPS. So overall, the max damage potential of Bob is 1,092. He has a 45-meter radius, 1,200 HP, which is a lot, and he lasts for 10 seconds. So, what's interesting about this ultimate is the fact that Bob is essentially a 7th player. He can contest objectives. He can benefit from, like, the Ana Nano Boost. He can get repair packs. He can get sound barrier. He can use a teleporter. He can get projected barrier from Zarya. But you could also, like, knock him back. You can stun him. He can get frozen, slapped, hacked, EMP'd. Like, the list goes on and on. But it's essentially, like, another player in the game, which is, like, so different compared to every other ultimate in the game. And it's really interesting. So Bob is essentially, like, this very smart iteration of a turret in some cases. And I am fearful for the whole, Ash is going to call down Bob, someone's going to get knocked up, and then just get sniped out of the sky by a Widowmaker. Like, that's going to happen. It's not going to be pretty. But all in all, like, all of us have agreed, like, we've all spent a good amount of time with Ash on the PTR. And, a little bit since she's gone live. Out of the heroes that they've introduced to the game, like, I may not be the best at Ash, but, like, her kit and just her overall character, it's just incredible. Like, I have not found one person that I have talked to since BlizzCon that's been like, I'm not really feeling it. Like, a lot of people have just fallen in love with this character, both with her toolkit and her actual look. So, I'm excited to see her more put into play, and I'm really curious to see if the dynamite aspect will, maybe start to bring the death of the heavy tank compositions, which we desperately need in the game and for the meta right now.
Yeah, I think, I really hope it does. Although I will say, out of our kit, the dynamite is what it might be the weakest part of her kit. Just because going up against goats, you have to throw it over the tank, and then you're basically at that point just hoping for fire damage, the dot. Because if you throw it over them, don't, and you don't, like, shoot it to explode it in the air, they're generally moving too fast for, like, because it doesn't start countdown the 2 seconds until it lands. They're probably already past the point of that dynamite really affecting them. So it could work well, but I don't like it's the weakest part of her kit. I think the best thing about her is is almost like the 1-2 punch that she gets. So when like you talk about, like, Bob knocking people in the air and Widowmaker taking them up. Well, the thing is when she's scoped in, like, she could scope in and snipe anyone that Bob knocks in herself. Because scoped in, I want to say she does, like, 175 with a headshot. Like, she can basically almost take down a character right away. I may be wrong on that because I don't have the actual math in front of me. But, like, Bob does 120 damage to the person. Well, one shot with her scoped in is going to kill anyone. And they don't like, so the 1-2 punch is her and Bob, and it's not just Bob that knocks them up in the air. It's like I was saying before about how she can counter Doomfist, and this is something I've seen actually pop up all over the place. Doomfist jumps in at you, you knock him back, and then you can scope in and headshot quite easily. Actually, I was surprised at how easy to knock back and scope in and shoot, because when you knock them back, you're generally facing them. So, and it doesn't like knock them off at an angle. So, like when you knock them back, you shoot them straight back. So you're already aimed at them. So you knock them back, scope in, and they're already right in front of you. So it's very easy to get like a good headshot. They're so close. So I just, there's nothing bad about her kit at all. Not to mention on the PTR, if you get the golden gun, Bob's golden too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a double win right there.
Absolutely. But moving on, we also had an update to Mercy, and this one is specifically revolving around her ultimate Valkyrie. So the ultimate cost was reduced by 15%. So you'll be getting your Valkyrie, a little bit sooner. And then your healing per second was increased from 50 to 60 only during your ultimate, which is important to note. They did not revert it back to what it was, so she still has her current heal per seconds outside of Valk. So all in all, like, I know whenever people see a Mercy change, they immediately go, "Oh, not the Moth meta again." So we're not at that point, guys. You don't need to fear, like. At the end of the day, it's only a buff for her ultimate, and even if you're getting your ultimate, a little bit quicker, the overall healing per second is still not going to outpace what an Ana is currently doing in the game. So fear not, we're not reverting back to any Mercy every game type meta or anything like that. Mercy is still not the worst. Well, like, throughput-wise, she might still be, like, the lower end of the main healers, but she's not going to be back in the forefront just based off of this change alone.
No. It's Mercy's gonna always be that character that is gonna get tweaked with almost every other patch, because there's no way they can truly balance perfectly because of her res ability. So they're gonna be floating in between her being too strong and her being too weak, and there's no real middle ground until they hit that sweet spot. And she's probably the most changed hero in the game.
Diva probably is.
Really, you think like the most changes to Diva over Mercy?
Yeah, I think it's close at this point, but I still think Diva takes the cake just because she is essentially two heroes.
Yeah, but like Mercy's going to be the ultimate tip point of frustration for people because of the one ability. So this isn't going to be the last time you see her change. She'll probably get another change on the next patch, depending on how she plays. So, it's good. It's not going to make her meta again anymore, though.
Taking a look at Reaper, they also, they reduce the spread of randomization. That's a lot of letters there. So they reduced that by 50%. They also adjusted the spread pattern. They also increased the lifesteal from 20% to 30% of the damage dealt. Now, I remember when we were talking about this, when this first hit the PTR, and Reaper is just one of those characters that I feel like, based on his lifesteal aspect, a lot of people tend to just think that he's going to be in this overpowered state. We've actually not seen that. Like, he's a great, like, deathmatch hero. He does pretty decent self-sustain when he's in a 1v1 situation. But even with the changes that we have seen to, like, his Wraith form, recently, he's still not in the best state because especially with his ultimate, he's very susceptible to counter. Like, there are so many ways to just deal with his Death Blossom, and I feel like until they kind of tweak that, like, I don't imagine Reaper being in the forefront of play. That being said, maybe on, maybe some of the lower tiers, I feel like Reaper is still going to be in a pretty decent spot, but I don't feel like he will be a mainstay DPS, even at those levels. He feels like still one of those heroes that might only be ideal in situations like being on Temple of Anubis point B defense, where you're able to, really get your damage in, and like if you start to get too low, you have that health pack on the lower end that's really easy for you to get to when you just Wraith form. But outside of that, he really doesn't have much of a place in the current meta of the game.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he could if Roadhog, who we'll talk about next, starts to become more meta, because he is a pretty good counter to Roadhog, because he doesn't have to deal with a shield. Getting around that. But yeah, no, like, this is just minor tweaks here and there to try and make him more competitive. It just doesn't work with him. Not in the current meta.
So, you mentioned Roadhog, and Roadhog did see quite a few changes. They decreased the delay before pulling a hook target from 0.5 seconds to 0.3 seconds. They also greatly reduced the target's momentum upon being hooked. The hook cooldown now begins immediately instead of after the target has been pulled. Like the other shotguns with Reaper, they also adjusted the spread pattern for both his primary and secondary fire. And the spread randomization, just like Reaper, was also reduced by 50%. They also made some changes to Whole Hog, his ultimate, so the knockback maximum velocity was increased from 8 meters to 10 meters per second. And then the Whole Hog horizontal recoil was also decreased slightly. So all in all, like, I don't play enough Roadhog to really, like, go deep into detail. But I know Harblu, who is a very prominent Roadhog player. I know he's, like, on record saying, like, this is the iteration of Roadhog that he's been wanting for quite some time. So at least in his mind, who I completely trust, Hog is where he needs to be, and hopefully, like, this is going to be the sweet spot for Hog, because they've had the hardest time fine-tuning Chain Hook as an ability, so hopefully this will be that sweet spot where they're not having to constantly make an adjustment to it seemingly every patch or every other patch. But I remember on the PTR, there were some inconsistencies with the spread pattern. I don't know if that was fixed. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that specifically for him.
Yeah, and I won't say this because I'm main or anything like that. I enjoy playing him, but like I'm not that great at him. I have noticed a lot more people are playing Roadhog in comp on the higher end when I'm watching players stream on Twitch. So you're starting to see a lot more Roadhog out there. So that's a good sign, I think, because Roadhog used to be a no-go pick at tank. So if they're playing him now and they're playing him over, other tanks, like they're playing him as a main tank. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign because Roadhog's always that hook can be an ultimate game changer. So I'm excited to see if this actually works.
We can only hope. We also have one change to Symmetra, which is the last of the changes for the hero balance updates. And that was revolving around her primary fire, where her beam charges 20% faster. And you and I are pretty much in the same boat with the new sim. Like, we haven't been overly impressed. We still don't see the full usage out of her teleport. I feel like the most use we get out of it is to, like, rush the point. Like an unexpected, like, immediately just push straight to the point on, like, Hanamura, things like that. Outside of that, like, we haven't really seen the full potential out of Symmetra's toolkit, and, the biggest reason for the faster charge with her primary fire was the fact that if you were using the primary fire before, you were basically just doing yourself and your team a disservice, because the splash damage that you were getting from her ultimate fire just greatly outweighed the damage output of her primary fire. I don't know if that's still going to be the case, but I have seen a noticeable difference when you are, trying to beam through like a Reinhardt shield or, an Orisa shield overall. So you might be seeing a little bit more of the left click action, but for me, like, with how quick the rate of fire is for her ultimate fire, it's going to be hard to really try to adjust to using her primary fire more, unless you're going up against a shield target.
Yeah, and like I said, right now, you put it perfectly. We don't know if it's going to be viable to even use her primary fire yet. It may, but probably not. And does this make her any better? Nope, she's still trash. So this does nothing to her. Like, they reworked her to be semi, and that's where she's staying. She's like Torbjorn. Torbjorn's semi okay, not really that good. Some people may disagree, but you're wrong. So it's that she's just not played right, and her kit is meant to not be played right. Like, her kit is made up to not use primary fire at all. Like, that's just bad game mechanics at that point. So this does nothing. They'll probably need to do something else to make her competitive. Some more buffs, tweaks, stuff like that. So we'll see if that comes in the future.
Well, I don't think Overwatch necessarily has to be a game where every hero has to be viable.
No, I don't think they all have to be viable. But the thing is, I think each hero will have their time in this. Like, they'll change someone, they'll become meta, stuff like that, and then another character will fall towards the bottom, and then that one's on the bottom. It's just like constant switching from top to bottom, stuff like that. So Symmetra, Tor, Bastion, they'll have their time. Knows when, but they will have their time, and at that point, maybe Reinhardt. Then if Bastion's in, Reinhardt becomes a not usable tank. You know what I mean? So who knows? But just as of right now, she's just not. She's bottom 3 in the game probably.
They'll have their time in like bronze. Outside of that, it's really hard to envision it, at least right now. But anyways, like, I know we are running long, so let's go ahead. Let's close out the show, because this has been a lengthy one. So if you guys want to help us out, honestly, just the best way to do that is to leave us a positive review over on iTunes. We're always looking for ways to improve the show, so if you guys have any suggestions for discussion points that you would like us to talk about, or any questions, feel free to email us or tweet us. We're always looking to hear from you guys. We also have Overwatch Recall, which is on our website. This is a podcast directory for Overwatch, Overwatch League, and Path to Pro content. So every Sunday, we release episodic listings of all the content out there. So be sure to find us on Twitter at OW Recall. And I'll have the podcast form up again very soon. I'm still trying to line up some interviews for that. I do know this Sunday, assuming this is still the plan, I'll be guesting on a new Overwatch talk show, which one of my buddies is doing. So I'll tweet all that stuff out when I have the full details, but that will be hosted by Malkari, who I've shoutcasted Overwatch tournaments with in the past. So stay tuned for that. That will be, I think it was Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time. But no, visit our podcast directory. You guys can find plenty of content. Last week, there was a lot more content than I thought it would be. Even with it being post BlizzCon, there was 22 new episodes across the board, which is more than what we normally get. So I was happy to see that. But Ed, we have so many ways to get a hold of us, for our viewers and our listeners. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can best reach us?
All right. Well, you can reach us first off, email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at hndoverwatch. We do have a website. It's owlnshow.com. And then we are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so you can support the show by subscribing to our Twitch channel and unlock our network emoticon. So thanks again to everyone who's been watching our shows live and interacting with the chat. If you'd like to catch us live, we broadcast 2 nights a week. So Overwatch League Network Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, and then Heroes Never Die. The show is on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams will probably be held on Thursdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And then let's see here, Discord. You can reach us and talk to us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. And then we also have a YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. You can reach me personally on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch. And Totem, where can they find you over on the little bluebird?
Well, I am over on Twitter at TumblyDrunkCTR, and just an update on YouTube. I know Spider is working on an Ash video. It is not finished yet. Obviously, none of us were expecting Ash to go live already. So he still needs a little bit more content for that, but I'm sure he'll have it up. Maybe I'm not going to say he'll for sure have it up within the next week, but we do have one in the works. So stay tuned for, the 4-minute overview that he typically does for the new hero releases. But for now, guys, that's going to do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. Again, this has been episode number 135. I've been your host, Tumbly Drunk, joined, as always, by Edinar. And we will see you guys back on Monday night for Overwatch League Network. And we will see you then. Guys, have a good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Heroes Never Die. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HND Overwatch and join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show.